Good Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Conversation Daily News. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. We, of course, have your news headlines coming up on this hump day with a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. And in today's Entertainment Spotlight, you've been part of my conversation with New York Times bestselling author Mary Alice Monroe discussing her extraordinary career. Enjoy today's broadcast. For Conversation Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with your Wednesday headlines. In national news, January 6th panel postpones hearing with ex-Justice Department officials. The House committee investigating the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol has postponed a hearing that was to feature dramatic testimony from former Justice Department officials who were pressured by then-President Donald Trump to pursue his false election fraud theories. The hearing had been scheduled for today, but the committee on Tuesday morning said that it had been delayed. A spokesman for the panel attributed the postponement to a number of scheduling factors, including production timeline and availability of members and witnesses. A Republican member of the committee said on Twitter that the hearing had been moved to next week as a way to space out the testimony surrounding the insurrection when crowds of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol and interrupted the certification of President Joe Biden's victory. The committee has already held 2 hearings, including a primetime one last week that featured never-before-seen video of extremists leading the deadly siege. Another hearing is set to take place on Thursday. The witnesses at Wednesday's hearing were to include Jeffrey Rosen, who was the acting attorney general at the time of the Capitol insurrection, as well as 2 other former top officials at the Justice Department. Lawyers for all 3 men did not immediately return messages seeking comment from the Associated Press. The witnesses, all of whom have since left the Justice Department, are expected to testify about how Trump sought to bend the department to his political will during the final days of his administration by urging officials to declare the election as corrupt and to aid in his efforts to challenge the results of the race won by Joe Biden. Though the lawyers' accounts have been documented by the news media, the hearing will give the American public its most detailed glimpse of a near revolt inside the Justice Department as Trump contemplated replacing the agency's top official with a low-level lawyer seen as more willing to advance the president's false claims that the election was stolen. Several other senior officials warned Trump in a White House meeting that they resign if the leadership change occurred. Rosen took over the department following the December 2020 departure of William Barr, who angered Trump by saying the department had not found fraud that could have affected the results of the election. Trump quickly soured on Rosen too after the then acting attorney general rejected entreaties from the president and the White House to challenge the election results. In more national news, FDA advisors back Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine for older kids. A government advisory panel Tuesday endorsed a second brand of COVID-19 vaccine for school-aged children and teens. The Food and Drug Administration's outside experts voted unanimously that Moderna's vaccine is safe and effective enough to give kids ages 6 to 17. If the FDA agrees, it would become the second option for those children, joining Pfizer's vaccine. The same FDA expert panel will meet today to consider tot-sized shots for Moderna and Pfizer for the littlest kids, those under 5. Moderna's COVID-19 vaccine has long been available for adults in the U.S. and elsewhere, and more than 36 countries offer it to children too. If the FDA authorizes Moderna's vaccine for teens and younger children, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will next decide whether to recommend the shots. In more national news, dangerous heat wave descends on parts of Midwest and South. Much of the Midwest and a swath of the South brace for a potentially dangerous and deadly heat wave this week, with temperatures that could reach record highs in some places and combine with humidity to make it feel like 100 degrees or hotter in spots. More than 100 million people were expected to be affected by today, and authorities warn residents to stay hydrated, remain indoors when possible, and be aware of the health risk of high temperatures. Strong storms brought heavy rain and damaging wind to many of the affected areas on Monday, and more than 400,000 customers remain without power as of Tuesday afternoon. In entertainment news, K-pop supergroup BTS says it's making time for solo projects. Global superstars BTS said they are taking time to focus on solo projects, but the company behind the groundbreaking K-pop group said they are not taking a hiatus. The 7-member group, with hits like Butter and Dynamite, talked about their future in a video post Tuesday celebrating the 9-year anniversary of their debut release. They just released a 3-disc anthology album, Proof, last week. And finally, in business news, stocks dipped deeper into bear market ahead of big Fed news. Most stocks on Wall Street dipped Tuesday in their first trading after tumbling into a bear market on worries that high inflation will push central banks to clamp the brakes too hard on the economy. The S&P 500 fell 14 points, or 0.4%, to 3,735 as investors braced for the Federal Reserve announcement today about how sharply it would raise interest rates. It wobbled between losses and gains through the day after a couple big companies flexed financial strength with stronger profits and payouts to shareholders. Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. It's now time for a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By. Enjoy. I'm Cyrus Webb, and welcome to Wednesday's episode of Words I Choose to Live By. To love yourself is to accept that you were created with love and are a conduit for the one who said that everything he created was good. Do not let anyone or anything ever take that away from you. Have an amazing Wednesday. We are part of my conversation coming up with best-selling author Mary Alice Monroe in today's Entertainment Spotlight. Stay with us. You're listening to Conversations Daily News. For Conversations Daily News, I'm Cyrus Webb with the Entertainment Spotlight. Best-selling author Mary Alice Monroe joined me on Conversations Live, the radio show, to talk about her extraordinary career and brand new book. Here's a bit of our conversation.
You've been able to do what authors dream of, Mary Alice, and that is to write for audiences of different ages and groups. What has that been like for you to see how expansive your readership is?
Honestly, it's been a blessing. It was a surprise as well. I knew after 20 years of writing for adults, when I was asked to write for middle grade, which is about ages 6 to 12, I said absolutely, because this is the future. These kids, I had a lot to say to. Not only that, but these kids really have a lot of enthusiasm, almost cocky enthusiasm, about being able to have a great future. And today, they need that enthusiasm. So I was a little trepidatious, but I approached it academically. I read every book I could get my hand on. I talked to experts, and I just had the voice for it. I mean, it came easily, which was a surprise. So I wrote a series for kids that mirrors what I did for all the adult books that I've written for 20-some years, to bring the wildlife and to bring the outside world alive for them so that they want to go out and get to know the animals.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you said that, Mary Alice, because I think the thing about Search for Treasure, and I think readers will appreciate this, is that you do have all the biggies that we as adults kind of grapple with, but also young people do as well. We see that in Search for Treasure. Was it also part of the fun for you, the fact that these were characters like Jake who were not afraid of seeking out adventure?
Well, I'm so glad you brought up the fear factor. Fear is really the number one reason why kids, as well as adults, are afraid to go out off the beaten path. What is that bug? What is that snake? I'm going to get bit by something. And what I hope I'm teaching in Search for Treasure, as well as Islanders, and as well as all my adult books, is I encourage in this book two things. One is to turn off the computers and unscreen, unplug, and get outdoors.
Cyrus Webb, Conversations Daily News. We thank you all for tuning in to this edition of Conversations Daily News. We're about to get on tomorrow with more news, a message from my book, Words I Choose to Live By, and of course your Entertainment Spotlight. Until then, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Daily News today. Let's make today amazing. Take care.